Nvidia just had earnings, and investors are really asking the wrong question. People are asking, should I buy Nvidia? But after the earnings, it's telling a different story. Because after Nvidia's earnings, the stock fell about 6%. They had amazing growth, fantastic demand, but the stock still fell. So the real question investors should be asking is, if Nvidia is the center of the AI boom, where is the money going to be flowing next? Because Nvidia doesn't operate in isolation. They affect the entire AI ecosystem. So in this video, I want to talk about what happened during the Nvidia earnings, why the market reacted the way it did, and then talk about some of those other companies that are being affected after Nvidia's earnings report. Nvidia's earnings are different from most companies, and that's because they are sitting in the middle of gigantic spend that is going on right now for AI. They have some of the largest customers in the world. Think about Amazon, Google, Meta. These are some of the companies that have the most value in earnings at risk. And so what NVIDIA has to say affects all of the tech industry. So not only do NVIDIA earnings give us a glimpse into what's going on with the most valuable company on the planet, we are also hearing how aggressively the rest of the biggest tech players are spending when it comes to AI. We know that AI needs tons of GPUs in order to run, and there's no question that demand is continuing well into the future. NVIDIA grew well over 70% versus a year ago, but what's really interesting is the stock pulled back right around 6%. And this is a very clear signal that there are sky-high expectations when it comes to NVIDIA whenever they release their earnings. If you watched my previous video where I talked about leading up into earnings and the expectation, this is exactly the scenario I highlighted that was most likely to happen. It didn't really matter how awesome the results were. It felt like no matter what, people were just going to be disappointed, and it was really unfortunate because it was an insane quarter again for NVIDIA. So this is where investors make a mistake. They hear about the earnings after hours and the results are insane. It opens up in the morning and people rush to go buy the stock. But this is a mistake because we don't know where the sentiment and everything else is going to be happening for the rest of things. So this is where you need to ask yourself and switch away from should I buy Nvidia to if Nvidia is winning, who else also wins and who can I go buy now knowing that Nvidia is also doing well? And here's a list of some companies that I think you should consider that would be definitely beneficiaries of NVIDIA winning. The first company which comes to mind that is NVIDIA's direct competitor is AMD. And the reason why AMD comes to mind is that there is such insane demand for AI chips. NVIDIA really can't produce all of them themselves. And there has to be additional suppliers for people to go to. And that's why AMD makes sense. It doesn't matter that NVIDIA is the leader. It just matters that AMD's chips are good enough that these big buyers are going to want to buy their chips as well. But interestingly enough, after NVIDIA reported earnings, AMD also pulled back right around 4%. So you can see first that if NVIDIA is pulling back, it means that people want to get rid of and sell their other AI chips, which would include AMD. It also might highlight that investors are viewing AMD as the very clear number 2 player because NVIDIA has such a massive lead with things. But all in all, with an AMD pulling back because of NVIDIA earnings, this helps you get a better position if you're interested to buy AMD. The next company that comes to mind that would benefit if NVIDIA is doing well is Broadcom. And unlike NVIDIA and AMD, Broadcom makes custom AI chips. So when Google or Amazon wants to do specialized chips for their cloud, they go directly to Broadcom as the clear leader here. But just like AMD, right after NVIDIA earnings, Broadcom pulled back right around 5%. So this sent a very clear signal that investors were wanting to sell all of the chip designers and just kind of move on after earnings there. But something interesting happened just a week later. When Broadcom reported earnings, their stock actually went up after earnings, recovering a lot of that loss that we saw from NVIDIA. And a takeaway here is that with Broadcom continuing to have triple-digit growth when it comes to their AI chips, there is a clear place in the market for these custom chips. So just because they pulled back because of Nvidia, this didn't mean it was a time to sell Broadcom stock, and it helped highlight that when other stocks pull back in sympathy for another, it can sometimes create opportunity, and that's exactly what happened with Broadcom. The next big beneficiary of Nvidia doing well is TSMC, or Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing. And they are the producers of all of the chips that Nvidia and AMD make. So if Nvidia is doing well and growing, that means TSMC is right there with it. But right after earnings, just like the chips, they pulled back right around 2 to 3%. So you can see it wasn't that big of a decline compared to the chips. But to me, this was the most obvious time to buy because TSM is probably one of the best companies that is undervalued going into this year. And whenever it pulls back, when a company is blowing out earnings like this, to me, it's a clear signal that they're doing fantastic. And I was not bothered by this at all. I love TSM here. The next company to start thinking about is what is the other piece of AI? And that is memory. And this is where Micron comes into play. And they are the big manufacturer when it comes to AI memory. After NVIDIA earnings, Micron stock was actually flat to slightly up. And I think this is really interesting because it helps start to highlight the different sentiments going on right now within AI. If you are an AI chip manufacturer, there is a kind of neutral to negative sentiment right now because people believe chip demand is eventually going to catch up. As for AI memory, though, after last year's blowout rally for these companies, people still think that memory is in a massive shortage and not catching up anytime soon. So, this is why Micron was able to actually use Nvidia earnings as a beneficiary rather than having to go down in sympathy like those chip manufacturers I thought you through. So let's zoom out here and kind of review the major players and how they reacted after Nvidia's earnings. So again, starting with Nvidia, they are the AI GPU leader, and despite amazing and strong earnings, they pulled back right around 6%. And that created this domino effect with the other chips. We saw their direct competitor, AMD, pull back right around 4%. And then Broadcom, the custom AI chip leader, they pulled back 5%, but this was actually an opportunity as they rose after they reported earnings later. As for the manufacturer, TSM, they pulled back about 2 to 3%. And then finally, the major memory AI supplier of Micron, they were actually flat to slightly positive. And this is why Nvidia is such an important stock to not only the entire stock market, but to the tech industry. With everything focused on AI, they are at the center of it, and they affect not only chips, but also the manufacturers, the memory suppliers, and the cloud companies that are spending all of their money to buy up their chips. So coming out of these earnings, the big takeaway here is that Nvidia is clearly doing well. They had an amazing quarter, but they pulled back despite all of this. So we may look back and see this as a fantastic buying opportunity because Nvidia is continuing to crush it as a company. But remember, next time that a major company like this reports earnings, it's not just about that company. It's about the impact that company is making on the entire sector and what are the opportunities you can look for as an investor to buy when those things pull back with sympathy. So I would love to know, are you buying Nvidia stock after earnings? Did you sell and are you moving on? Or are you taking advantage of any of these other pullbacks in any of those stocks that I talked about? Be sure to throw it in the comments below. I'd love to read about what everyone is doing to take advantage of this right now. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe so that way you don't miss any more of the dives I do for AI or any other chip stocks I like to cover. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.